If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Commander Deck Tech video. This time for Patron Jesus, wanted me to do Empress Galina. Empress Galina is a 5 mana, mono blue 1/3 legendary merfolk. She has an activated ability of 2 blue and tap to gain control of target legendary permanent. Now, if you are familiar with rules changes, around the time of Ixalan was when they decided to make Planeswalkers legendary. So cards like Captain Sese and Empress Galina saw a bit of a price hike. If you can interact with a completely different permanent type when you couldn't before, it is probably going to add another dimension to your card. And since she can be your commander just like Captain Sese, a lot of commander players are going to get behind that. Now, she's pretty good as one of the 99, but I think as a commander, you have the opportunity to fool around with some disgusting cards. The theme should be about stealing combo pieces, stealing important cards for your opponent's decks, making it so they have to play good old-fashioned fair magic, win with combat. Now, of course, not every opponent is going to go for some kind of infinite combo or unfair combo. They might just have a Craterhoof Behemoth or some very easy to win with card, and we really don't want them to get that ever. So the harder we can make it for them to win with those cards, the better. The obvious upside being that most of our opponent's commanders are legendary permanents, whether they're Planeswalker commanders or just legendary creatures. If it's important for their strategy, we have a huge advantage with our commander. Now, to start it off, like a lot of my deck techs, I want to go over some important lands, and since our commander is all about targeting, we want to make it so that our opponents can't just stop that with Shroud or Hexproof, so Arcane Lighthouse and Detection Tower. These are very good at getting around a common Swiftfoot Boots. Arcane Lighthouse has the advantage of taking away Shroud, so it's obviously a little bit better. But it's just cheap to activate it, and you tap it to make sure that you can take control of that creature. Now we are playing mono blue and there's a ton of card draw in mono blue, so Reliquary Tower is a smart card to have, but we want even more mana, so go with a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. We will have some enchantments, we will have a lot of permanents that just sit on the field, and they have that devotion to blue, so let's take advantage of it. And we have some ramp here, we have some artifact ramp. Our commander is 5 mana with an activated ability, so you do have to add up those costs. You're going to want to have some decent ramp. Soul Ring is the obvious one, but we also have Mind Stone. Sky Diamond does provide us with colored mana, however. And to make all of our blue spells cheaper, we have a Sapphire Medallion. It's not technically ramp, but cost reduction can be better in many situations. Morn Power Stone, Thran Dynamo, and Gilded Lotus are all going to tap for multiple mana, helping us get our commander out there so we can get started. But what's even more important is that we have Extra Planar Lens and Caged Sun, which, by the way, we are playing a decent 30 snow-covered islands, just to help make us the only ones to profit off of Extra Planar Lens. And another very important thing to go over is card draw, which shouldn't be difficult at all in mono blue. We have the usual suspects like Brainstorm, Ponder, and Preordain. Doesn't really seem to matter what mono blue deck I play, I usually just include these 3. Same thing goes for Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study. Even though Mystic Remora only counts non-creature spells, it's probably going to put in way more work than Rhystic Study, considering it's so much easier to pay 1 mana to prevent card draw. And since we are mono blue, we're going to have a bunch of counterspells. I'll go over the generic ones first, and then we'll start it off with the steal effects. Swan Song, Arcane Denial, Counterspell, just all around efficient counterspells. If you can pay 2 or less mana to counter a spell, it's usually going to be worth it. And then we have some other counter magic like Desertion. We can counter a target spell if an artifact or creature spell is countered this way. We put that card onto the battlefield under our control instead of into its owner's graveyard. We have a similar thing with Spelljack. It costs 1 more mana, but it pretty much allows us to steal any spell. And although it's technically not a counterspell, it works in a similar way. Aether Snatch, gain control of target spell. You may choose new targets for it. Comes in handy for removal. And obviously, if you gain control of a creature cast this way, or any kind of permanent cast this way, it comes into play under your control. It is 6 mana, but when you consider it's a lot more than just stopping a spell, it's well worth that mana. Other pretty big cards here, we have Acquire and Bribery. Very similar cards. Acquire works for artifacts, Bribery works for creatures. Just very interesting cards when you can steal what is probably the best artifact or creature from an opponent's library. Like I said earlier in the video, you can just take their best combo piece, even if they could just kill it, put it into their graveyard and get it back later. In many ways, this is going to inconvenience them. We also have the newer card, Mass Manipulation. It does have double X in the cost, which means you're going to have to put more mana into it to gain control of more creatures or planeswalkers, but that is well worth it. It's very similar to the next card, Blatant Thievery. It just allows you to gain control of multiple permanents. Blatant Thievery giving us 1 for each opponent. And what you can steal is very important because there are good lands like Gaia's Cradle. Now we do have some very good enchantments that are going to do something similar. Control Magic is just an aura that we can use to enchant a creature and have it so that we can gain control of that creature. In a similar way, we have the same thing for Steal Artifact. We can control that artifact that we enchant. There's also Steal Enchantment if you want to play that card. I didn't include it in the actual deck list because I think there are a lot more powerful artifacts. Corrupted Conscience is the same thing as Control Magic, but we give that creature Infect. So you actually give yourself a little bit of a win con there. There's the Insane Treachery. A lot of these cards from Urza's block. Pretty much free spells. If they resolve, you get to untap that many lands, freeing you up to use Empress Galina's ability if you wanted to, or casting another spell. Confiscate is 6 mana, but it's enchant permanent, not just creature. Same thing with Bolus's Clutches. It's 6 mana, but it's well worth that mana when you can take control of any permanent. And then we have Take Possession, which is 7 mana to do the same exact thing, but we have Split Second, so our opponents can't really do much to stop us. Again, you have to do the math here. You have to take into consideration the fact that your opponents are not going to be doing much to stop this. It's well worth that 7 mana. And then we have Mind's Dilation, all about stealing our opponent's spells. Whenever they cast their first spell each turn, they reveal the top card of their library. If it's a non-land card, you get to cast it without paying its mana cost. One of the deadliest commander cards, because if you leave it out there for too long, you're just gaining so much advantage. It's not like your opponents are going to refuse to cast spells. You're going to end up getting something off of this because your opponents are going to at least try to remove it, which is probably going to be through casting a spell. Just a very fun card. It's usually fun when you can fool around with your opponent's cards. And we have some creatures that are going to help us accomplish pretty much the same thing. Callous Oppressor. When it comes into play, an opponent chooses a creature type. We gain control of target creature that isn't of the chosen type as long as it remains tapped. So if there are a bunch of problem creatures, you're usually okay if you have to settle for one. Dominating Licid, we can just have it become an aura, attaching it to a creature that we can gain control of, which is very nice because it's not like the other auras. We can just choose to do this once it's already on the field. Thought Adele can help us steal problem artifacts from our opponent's deck. And Aura Thief can have a similar impact on our opponents who are playing enchantment-heavy decks. A lot deadlier though because it's a death trigger. We gain control of all enchantments. And Sower of Temptation is run-of-the-mill steal an opponent's creature. That'll last for as long as it's on the field. And Thalicos Deceiver lets us gain control of a creature permanently, and we do that by sacrificing it if it's unblocked, which shouldn't be difficult. Shadow is pretty much unblockable. And probably one of the most powerful cards in the whole deck is Beguiler of Wills. We can tap her to gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of creatures we control. If we can spend our whole game stealing our opponent's creatures, hopefully we have a massive board. Perplexing Chimera, very annoying card. It can stop our opponents from casting a bunch of spells. They have to consider the fact that we can steal it whenever we feel like it. Kaiga the Tidestar, pretty cool death trigger. We just gain control of a target creature. Royal Elemental gives us value in land drops. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we gain control of a creature for as long as we control Royal Elemental. An Agent of Treachery, a newer card that rewards us for having multiple permanents we don't own. At the beginning of our end step, if we have 3 or more of them, we get to draw 3 cards. And then we have the awesome Memnarch. I'm not including any infinite mana combos. I think that would be too rude, and also a pretty easy win with a lot of other cards in the deck. but we can just use Memnarch to gain control of artifacts by really turning everything into artifacts. And then we have Sphinx Ambassador to round out the creatures. We deal combat damage with her, and then we search the player's library for a card. They have to name a card. If we searched for a creature that they didn't name, we get to just put it right into play. So you do have to be a little bit clever, but definitely a rewarding card. We have some artifacts that are going to help us out here. Illusionist Bracers, just to get more value out of Empress Galina. We get to copy the ability, so we can steal 2 legendaries. Chaos Wand is awesome because we get to steal instants and sorceries, which is a little bit different from the rest of the deck. Vidalcan Shackles is perfect in a mono blue deck because we can gain control of target creature power less than or equal to the number of islands we control for as long as Vidalcan Shackles remains tapped. Since we're playing almost all islands, it should be pretty easy to gain control of most creatures. In Helm of Possession, since we're already stealing our opponent's creatures, the cost of sacrificing a creature shouldn't be too difficult. We can just use this to gain control of an even better creature. And finally, I just want to talk about probably the coolest card, Leyline of Singularity. It's an enchantment, but like all the other ley lines, if we have it in our hand at the beginning of the game, we can just put it into play. All non-land permanents are legendary, which is absolutely devastating for token decks, but it's even better for us because we can just gain control of regular creatures. We can gain control of regular enchantments, artifacts, making Empress Galina so much more valuable. But we also have Leyline of Anticipation and Vidalcan Orrery. These 2 cards I think are absolutely must-haves in this deck. So the time spent between casting her and then using her ability is a lot shorter. It's also nice because we have a lot of those enchantments that are sorcery speed normally. But anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks again Jesus for being a patron. Really cool deck idea. Definitely taking advantage of Commander when you fool around with legendary stuff. She's just a really cool legendary creature that you could throw into a lot of cool decks like Merfolk the Pretender if you like that activated ability just by itself. And there are other directions you can go if you just want to do untapped stuff. You can most certainly make a deck built around that. Definitely one that I think if she was cheaper, more people would play with. But anyway, you all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again, and have a good day.